Hey there, kids. This is Reveal Math lesson 12.2. Let's take a look together. It says this today. Let me get my highlighter. It says you can represent decimal fractions using decimal notation. Okay, and notation is just the way that you write something, like taking notes. Okay, and represent means you can show it in another form. It could be a picture, it could be in number form, it could be on a number line, something like that, okay? So it says 3/10 right here. Okay, 3/10 can be represented by the decimal grids, okay, off to the left here. These are called grids, and the decimals shown below. So this one right here has got 3 out of 10 parts to it, and normally what we've learned so far is that you can write it as a fraction like this, 3/10, but you can also write it as a decimal number. Now, fractions are part of a whole, and decimals are part of a whole also. So notice that here is the ones place right here, but a fraction is less than 1. It's not even 1, okay? It happens between 0 and 1, all right? So there's no whole numbers right here, so we put a 0 right there. There's no ones, but there are 3/10. Now this right here is the decimal point. You see it right there? Okay, and the first place value to the right of the decimal is called tenths, all right? And so here we put the 3 right there, and this is 3/10. Now we read this number as 0 and 3/10, or in this case, you could just say 3/10. Now, if somebody were to come to you and say 3/10, you don't know if they're talking about it as a decimal or if they're talking about it as a fraction, because both these things sound exactly alike. This is 3/10, this is 3/10. And the good news is they both equal the same amount. It doesn't matter, okay? You can write it either way. A fraction and a decimal are the same thing. Now this one right here is showing 30 out of 100 parts, okay? Once again, there's no wholes, so we put a 0 right there. Here's the decimal point, okay? Here's the tenths right here. Now, we had tenths up here and tenths down here. That's the same, okay, because it's the same amount of shaded space here. But we go one space over to the right in our place value chart, and this one's called hundredths. And we read this as 30 hundredths. Now, wherever the number ends is what we say. Like we don't read this as 0 and 3/10 and no hundredths. We don't say that. If the number is 2 digits long, then we read the second one right here. If the number is only 1 digit long, then we read the first one right here. So you could read this as 0 and 3/10, or you could just call it 3/10. And this one would be 0 and 30 hundredths. We don't read the tenths in this case right here because this number ends in hundredths. Whenever you see a decimal point and you're reading the number, you want to use the word and, A-N-D, 0 and 3/10, 0 and 30 hundredths. So both 0 and 3/10 and 0 and 30 hundredths represent 3/10. They're both the exact same amount right here. It's just a different way of saying it. Kids, you're learning how to write fractions and decimals. Okay, well, let's take a look at this one right here. This one right here, if we write it as a fraction, let's do that first. This right here, 8 out of 10 are shaded in, and we read this as 8/10. Okay, we'd write it like that, and we'd read it like that. Now, there's no wholes, okay? There's only part of a whole right here, and it's 8 out of 10 parts. And there's no hundredths because they didn't divide this shape up into 100 parts. They only divided it up into 10. Okay, so it's only tenths. So we can read this as 0 and 8, and it's in the tenths column when we say 8/10. Now, a lot of people would just not say the 0. They just say this is 8/10. 0.8, like it. Yeah, and don't really say point. A lot of people do that too. This is just 8/10. This is 8/10 right here. Okay? Kids, you're learning how to write fractions as decimals. Okay, here's another one right here. Once again, we've got 0 wholes, okay? It looks to me like 36. 36 of these are shaded in, okay? Now, these are not tenths. There's 100 little squares right there, aren't there? Okay, so this is going to be hundredths, and 36 of them are shaded in. So 36 out of 100 are shaded in. We read this as 36 hundredths. Down here, it's no holes, and right there you say and for that decimal. 36 hundredths. We don't say the tenths because if the number ends in the hundredths column, then that's what we say. It ends right here. So we say hundredths, 36 hundredths. Okay? It sounds just like this fraction right up there, doesn't it? 36 hundredths, 36 hundredths. Kids, you're learning how to write fractions as decimals. Okay, here's another one right here. Now in this case right here, we do have holes. Okay, this one is a complete, it's 10 out of 10 that are shaded in, and that makes one hole, right? Okay, if you were to write this one right here as a fraction, it's 10 parts out of 10, and you know that whenever you have the numerator and denominator the same, that equals one whole. So we have one whole, and here's our decimal point, 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths, and no hundredths because it's not divided up into hundredths today, is it? So we read this one, you could write it as a fraction like 1 and 4 tenths. And you could write it as a decimal. 1, there's a 1 in the ones place, and a 4 in the tenths place. So we read it as 1 and 4 tenths. Okay? Kids, you're learning how to write fractions as decimals. All right, in class today, you're doing workbook pages 137 and 138. You're doing practice pages 125 and 126. Okay, it says this, complete the equation by writing an equivalent decimal, fraction, or mixed number. All right, well, this one right here is 9 hundredths. If we were going to write this as a decimal, there's no holes, and there's no tenths, right? So we're going to put a 0 right there, but there's a 9 in the hundredths place. So this is 9 hundredths, and we read this one as 9 hundredths. This one right here, there's a 9 in the tenths place, and there's no holes. Okay, we read this as 9 tenths. If you were going to write it as a fraction, you'd write it as 9 tenths. Okay, this one over here is no holes and a 6 in the tenths place, so we'd say 6 tenths. You'd write it as a fraction like this, 6 tenths. Okay, and the last one right here is number 4, and it's 1 and there's a 4 in the hundredths place. So we'd read this as 1 and 4 hundredths. There's no tenths, right? So we write this as a fraction as 1 and 4 hundredths. This is actually a mixed number, right? Okay, we read this one as 1 and 4 hundredths. We read this one as 1 and 4 hundredths. Okay, they're both the same. Kids, you're learning how to write fractions as decimals. Okay, there you go. Go ahead and give it a try. If you need help, come and see us. We will help you. Have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.